Hello, everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World, coming to you on a Friday. An unexpected double dose of Prime Sports World, as we're going to be breaking down the 2022 Atlanta Falcons season preview. I'm probably going to be running solo for this show, so just, if you want to, I have put the StreamYard link into all of the places that we stream. So if anybody wants to join me and break down some Atlanta Falcons football, please feel more than welcome to do so. But if you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. We go live 6 or 7 times a week, bringing the most up-to-date content, including a season preview for every single football team in the National Football League this season as we get closer and closer to opening day. I think we're like 90 days away from the start of the NFL season. So we're counting down those days, and we're going to continue doing our season previews. This is our 6th season preview. If you missed any of the AFC South, we already did all of those. Those are on our channels, and you can check those out on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter. We're moving into the NFC South. Earlier today, we did the Carolina Panthers. Now we're doing the Atlanta Falcons. So let's talk a little bit about my initial reaction to Atlanta, what I think they're going to be. By the way, my name is David Puffman. I'm executive producer here at Prime Sports World. Thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe to the post. This particular show. Every single share, every single like, every single view helps us build this brand. So if you guys can help us in any way, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Anyways, Atlanta Falcons 2022. They moved on from Matt Ryan. We'll get into their storylines here in a few minutes. But this Atlanta Falcons team in 2022 is probably this is one of those things where I think they're going to be required, like every year up until this point, the offense has been the focal point of the Atlanta Falcons. That will not be the case this season. I don't think they really have the complementary weapons outside of Kyle Pitts and outside of Cordell Patterson at the running back / wide receiver position. So they're gonna need to rely on a defense that should be really good this season. I mean, they were really good last season, or at times they were really good last season. They have one of the top 5 corners, according to Pro Football Focus. I think Atlanta they're gonna be this is gonna be very much a change of culture for the Atlanta Falcons. It won't be the fact that they have a high flying offense anymore that's going to carry their lackluster defense. I think it's going to have to be the other way around. Atlanta's interesting. I think their season could go a lot of different ways. We'll see what happens when we get to the prediction on the schedule. I think there could be a very scenario where they go very, very different ways with this season. Moving on from there, we'll go right into their storylines. First one, dawn of a new era in Atlanta. Matt Ryan traded. So what does that mean now? Well, it just means that this team is for sure, they should be going into a full rebuild. Bringing in the free agency decision of Marcus Mariota doesn't really feel like that's the decision that they've made. But Atlanta is going into this new era. They're going to be Matt Ryan is no longer part of this franchise. The most successful quarterback in the history of the team is no longer taking snaps under center for this Atlanta Falcons team. They did a good job by Matt Ryan, sent him to a place where he could potentially go and win a Super Bowl, depending on what you think about the Indianapolis Colts. But this is just something that needed to happen. Like the Atlanta Falcons were constantly treading water because they have a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback on their team that they felt they needed to be competitive. But now that he's no longer on the roster, maybe there would be a for sure shift in the fact that maybe this Atlanta Falcons team is finally going to start to rebuild. Marcus Mariota is a good football player. He was used sparingly in Las Vegas the last 2 seasons after he lost his job to Ryan Tannehill. He hasn't really been the same guy since that nerve injury on his hand. Many people kind of forget about that, but yeah, he injured his hand a few years ago in Tennessee and wasn't able to even grip the football at one point. He hasn't really been the same player. We'll look to see if he can bounce back now as his starting job. The weapons really aren't there for Marcus Mariota to really be productive. So this is for sure down of a new era. I mean, they look at how well they drafted wide receivers to build up this roster. They need to work on this offensive line, but it's for sure a new era in Atlanta. This just means maybe a shift in focus of what the focal point of this Atlanta Falcons team is going to be for the next couple seasons. They're looking to be a rebuild. The other question is what to do with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley left the team last season to sort out his mental health situation. I think he played in like 5 games last year before he decided that he needed to shut it down. An interesting decision by one of the up-and-coming wide receivers in the National Football League. And then before the start of this season, he gets suspended for the entire calendar year for betting on games doing DraftKings or FanDuel. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But he bet on games for the Atlanta Falcons that he could not play, and the NFL did not like it. They basically suspended him for the entire season. At least this season, he's going to be eligible for reinstatement after the season. I'm not really sure what you do with Calvin Ridley. I kind of thought the writing was on the wall that they may try to trade him this offseason, at least before the draft. I think they knew that this suspension was coming, so they didn't include him in any kind of trade. So I think Calvin Ridley, if I'm the Atlanta Falcons, I'm not expecting him to be part of the future plans of this franchise. You draft a wide receiver in the first round. I mean, it'd be nice to have those two guys together, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. Calvin Ridley is probably not in the future plans of the Atlanta Falcons. I imagine the next offseason when he gets off of the suspension, they will look to trade him to somewhere where he can be a little more productive too. Because, I mean, if you're Calvin Ridley, do you want to stay in Atlanta and lose for the next couple of years? Probably not. He's going to be a free agent here in a couple of years as well. So look for them to trade him. And then I asked the question about could this be a top 10 defensive unit in the NFL next season? Grady Jarrett's on this team, depending if they don't decide to trade him away. They drafted Arleigh Buchanan, a really good edge rusher out of Penn State. They got Deion Jones, who's dealing with a little bit of an injury right now and hasn't even participated in any of the workouts so far. But I'm not overly worried about it. And then they got Rashad Evans in free agency, who's a really good linebacker. One of those, textbook linebackers that they had there in Tennessee. One of those nice Mike linebackers who should be able to stabilize things in there. They really don't miss a dominant edge rusher. Nick Thurman and Daquan Graham don't really give you the dominant edge rushing that you're really looking for. You're hoping you're going to get that out of Arleigh Buchanan. That's a lot to ask for a rookie. AJ Tyrell has become one of the better corners in the National Football League. He really has elevated his game and took it to another level. Adding Casey Hayward too is also a really good second, quarterback too. And Isaiah Oliver, who was a good player last season. They drafted Richie Grant, who had an up and down rookie season, but look for him to continue to grow as a player and somebody who was pretty high caliber, highly touted coming into that draft last season. They got him in the second round. I think there is potential here for this to be a top 10 defensive unit in the National Football League. If we have two corners that should give three corners, really. Isaiah Oliver's a good football player too. This is a cornerback room that should give a defensive unit that should give a lot of offenses trouble, especially in the NFC South, where you have, a lot of questions in Carolina, New Orleans, Tampa Bay obviously is going to be Tampa Bay, but those other two teams, I think they could give those offenses a little bit of struggle. So AJ Tyrell, I think this could absolutely be a top 10 unit. What do you guys think? Do you think that this Atlanta Falcons defensive unit has the potential to be a top 10 unit next year? Or am I way over the top on this? Do you think that's is a realistic expectation to think that Atlanta can finish to the top 10 when it comes to the defensive side of the football? I think it is realistic. I think it could happen. Let me know. Also, what would you do with Calvin Ridley? And what do you think the future is for the Atlanta Falcons when it comes now that Matt Ryan is no longer part of this franchise? How do you think they're going to be handling the future as they move forward? From that into their draft, the number 8 overall, they take Drake London, crazy wide receiver. He had like 80 catches for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns in the 8 games he played before he broke his ankle. The dude is just a high catch guy. Could be a really good compliment to Calvin Ridley if he's healthy. If Calvin Ridley comes back and is part of this team next season, I think the jury's still out on there. Arleigh Buchanan, defensive end out of Penn State. All the intangibles we look for when it comes to a surefire defensive end. He has all of the intangibles. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. He's 6'3", 256. Improved every year. He was on the Nittany Lions, including 29.5 sacks in 2021, along with 62 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Yeah, this guy should be a good player on the other side of should be able to get Troy Anderson, a linebacker. With Jacoby Dean still on the board, they went with Troy Anderson. Don't necessarily love it, but yeah, he also played running back a little bit for Montana State while he was there, scoring 32 career touchdowns. He was also quarterback, and then he was a linebacker. I don't know. So we'll see what ends up happening with Troy Anderson. It seems like a reach when they drafted him in the second round. I think they could have gone other ways. And then the Desmond Ritter, quarterback out of Cincinnati, was really good, really productive in Cincinnati as on that team. Ends up becoming the second quarterback taken in this year's draft. I like Desmond Ritter's upside. I think getting him in the third round as not having to spend a second or a first round pick on him he's a nice fit for Atlanta Falcons, what they want to do. He could really thrive in Arthur Smith's offense there. He's got the accuracy. He's extremely accurate quarterback. And I think he has the opportunity to really sit behind Marcus Mariota for one season at least and really figure out the offense and figure out how to play in the National Football League. And he could be down the stretch, be this team's answer at quarterback. If they don't end up finishing in the top, 3 and they end up with the Bryce Young sweepstakes, but I don't think that'll be the case. I think, Desmond Ritter is a really good pick. D'Angelo Malone, outside linebacker, Western Kentucky. Had 94 tackles in his career in last season, 17 and a half tackles for loss last season for Western Kentucky out of the MAC. He was the Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and 22. I guess Western Kentucky doesn't play in the MAC in football. Interesting. I did not know that. Yeah, I mean, he's another one of those players, outside linebacker, should be able to get after the quarterback. He had 9 sacks last season as well. So this is a productive football player. Running back, Tyler Engler, running back out of BYU, 5'10", 224 pounds. He's a bit of a bigger back, 36 career touchdowns while he was at BYU. They need to do something at wide receiver because Mike Davis is gone. Cordell Patterson is the only running back they really have. They have Damon Williams as well, but let's see what's left of him. He was not particularly good in Chicago last year. So Cordell Patterson, Tyler Engler could be looking to get some depth there at running back. Let's see what else they have going on at running back. Yeah, Damon Williams and Jerry McNichols, who's been bouncing around the NFL. He's with Tennessee last season, so it's good to see. Probably going to need some depth at the running back position. Pretty good pick. Justin Schaefer, guard out of Georgia, 6'4", 330 pounds, 2-year starter, guard for the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. He could be, another developmental player who will get a shot to win a roster. They don't really have anybody who's really proven on that offensive line, so he should get a shot at really, being the guy. John Fitzpatrick didn't really need it. They didn't need a passing catching tight end with Kyle Pitts on this roster. They did get themselves a blocking tight end with John Fitzpatrick, 6'2", 250 pounds. Whenever they need a physical presence, they want to run 2 tight end sets because Lee Smith just retired in the offseason. So Fitzpatrick should replace that Lee Smith role. I actually kind of like what Atlanta did with their draft. I love the Drake Luckin pick. I love the Epicati pick. Desmond Ritter also was a great pick. So this is, I think when we did the draft day coverage, I think I gave this a solid B+. It's a really well done draft with the Atlanta Falcons here. And then their free agent roster shakeup additions: Marcus Mariota, Ola Kondu. Actually, he should be on departures. He ended up going to Jacksonville, so I have that mistake. I will fix that right now, actually. Give me just a second. Let me just double check that before I say that. Yeah. Olakan, yeah, he's now a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is not on the Falcons. I did not make that mistake. On team, sorry. Then obviously they lost Matt Ryan too. I have it on the choice. All right. So yeah, the key additions: Casey Hayward Jr. has been a solid corner everywhere he's gone. He's usually a late times but he's always been a solid corner everywhere. He spent last season in Las Vegas. Marcus Mariota also spent last couple seasons in Las Vegas. Was a pretty solid backup to Derek Carr. Sean Evans, good linebacker, coming out of the Tennessee Titans. Then departures: Matt Ryan, obviously. Russell Gage is was basically their wide receiver 1 after they traded away Julio Jones in the offseason, and Calvin Ridley decided to step away from the team. Dante Fowler Jr. gave you the edge rush presence. Hayden Hurst hasn't really lived up to being a first-round pick from Baltimore. And then Ola Kondu, who may be one of the best run-stopping players in the National Football League, is no longer on this roster. If you're a team that's going to be, you're building towards the future, this is kind of what happens when you go to free agency. Nobody wants to go there and lose. You're not going to get these big name free agents. You're going to get a Casey Hayward who kind of has to pick these kind of contracts to kind of continue to play in the National Football League. I'm actually kind of surprised that the Rashad Evans deal is so light. They got him at a 1-year deal worth $1.7 million. I kind of feel like he's worth more than that, which is kind of the number is very interesting there for Rashad Evans. Lorenzo Carter, they signed an edge. not a lot of risk, if anything, there. They re-signed Cordell Patterson. They kind of had to. He was probably their most intriguing offensive weapon, especially since Calvin Ridley is going to be suspended. They needed to keep him for sure. Yeah, Casey Hayward Jr. I talked about 2 years deal with $11 million. You put him next to AJ Tyrell, shit makes all the sense in the world. They signed Eric Harris. Should just give them some depth at the safety position. They have Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins. Gives them some more depth. And they signed Damian Williams from the Chicago Bears. He was a good player in spurts in Chicago, and we talk about this all the time, me and TJ. That Super Bowl that Kansas City won, Damian Williams should have probably been the MVP. He was the most important player on the team outside of they re-signed Younghoe Koo, probably the best kicker in the National Football League. Tez Tabor. Another corner that they added, safety, more depth. Elijah Wilkinson, he played 58 games, started 27 between the Bears and the Chicago Bears and Denver Broncos. They needed some depth at offensive line, so this guy definitely brings it for them. They re-signed Isaiah Oliver. Jermaine Ifedi signed a 1-year deal. Jermaine Ifedi's been kind of meh most of his career. He spent 2 years in Chicago, for 4 years in Seattle. It's just, he hasn't been over that overwhelming. But I think when you look at their roster, this is kind of what happens. I mean, nobody really wants to go and play in Atlanta right now, especially if they're going to be in a semi-rebuild. Your free agency shakeup's going to kind of look like this. All right, it's time for the schedule. So let's get into the schedule right away. Let's talk about the first matchup here. When New Orleans comes to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Let me go ahead. I got to pull up Microsoft Word. Sorry about that. Give me just a second. All right, so New Orleans comes to Atlanta take on for the first game of the regular season. I think these two teams actually are going to split during the regular season. I actually think Atlanta gets off to a winning record in the first game of the season. So I have them beating New Orleans in the first game of the season. And then they go to the Rams and they go to Seattle in a back-to-back NFC West opponents. I think they take L's in both of those two games. Although I could see a scenario where they go to Seattle and beat Seattle based on the fact that I think this Atlanta Falcons defense is going to be much improved. Actually, I'm going to roll with that. I'm going to go with that. The Atlanta Falcons are going to start the season 2-1. They're going to lose to the Los Angeles Rams, and they're going to go to Seattle and deal with the 12th man and beat the Seattle Seahawks. All right, so then the next 4 games all against potential playoff teams, and 3 of these teams actually made the playoffs last season. Cleveland, they got the whatever's going on with Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield situation, and all of the mess that's going on with that. Tampa Bay, they go to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. San Francisco comes there, and then they go to Cincinnati to take on the reigning AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. I think all four of those games will eventually be losses. I do not think they're good enough to hang with Cleveland, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, or Cincinnati. If you disagree with me, let me know down in the comment section. That's damn sure. That's how I feel about it. That drops them down to 2-5, going to the next game where Carolina is going to come to Atlanta to take them on. And I think Carolina and Atlanta are going to split their home series. So I'll have Atlanta winning this game. They move up to 3-5. But they did not get to go on any kind of winning streak because the next week the Chargers come to town, and I think the Los Angeles Chargers put the hurting on the Atlanta Falcons to drop them at 3-6. Before they go to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers, and I will have the Carolina Panthers winning that game with the split of the season series. Chicago then goes into Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Nice little homecoming there for Justin Fields, who was at Georgia at one point and then lost the job to Jake Fromm and then transferred over to Ohio State. It's kind of one of those, he gets to go kind of where he was born. He's probably gonna have a lot of fans in the stadium. I actually think Chicago gets this victory. I just don't trust. I don't know how much offense the Atlanta Falcons are going to be able to put up in this particular game. So give me Chicago to win that game, and it's not me being a homer at all. Promise you. And then they go to Washington to take on the football team. This is Carson Wentz. I actually think they're going to get the W here. I will pick them to beat the Washington football team or Washington Commanders, whatever they want to be called now. That name is just not good. From there, Pittsburgh goes into Atlanta. I think depending on who the quarterback is at this point in the season, I don't think it matters. Pittsburgh still gets the win. 4-9 for the Atlanta Falcons. And then they get their bye. The next week they have to go to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And then the next week they have to go to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. I think they take L's in both of those games. I think that road record is going to be tough. So 4-11. And then they'll wrap up the final 2 games of the season by going Arizona and Tampa Bay, both going to their house. I think depending on where Tampa Bay is at this point in the season, they could not have a lot to play for, and they could give this game to Atlanta. But I imagine that they're still going to be playing for home field advantage. I don't expect any team in the AFC to run away with anything there in the NFC. So in Arizona, I think it's just a bit more talented football team. I know they lost Chandler Jones. DeAndre Hopkins will for sure be back by now. I will take both of these games as L's for the Atlanta Falcons, and they wrap up their season at 4-13, which is, not terrible. If you watch the Carolina Panthers show we did earlier, I had them finishing the season 1-16. This is just like Atlanta's in a lengthy rebuild. Like they're going to be doing rebuilding stuff for a long time. I don't expect this to be an overnight fix. I also don't expect Marcus Mariota to be the answer at quarterback. Do I think that Desmond Ritter could be? Yeah, I do think that's a real possibility that Desmond Ritter could be the guy. And I'm not totally sure that he doesn't see some football field this season. So we'll see what happens. What do you guys think is going to happen with the Atlanta Falcons season? I have them finishing the year 4-13. If you guys disagree with me, let me know down in the comments section. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us here at Prime Sports World. I've been David Huppman. And if you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we go live about 6 or 7 times a week, including sometimes we go live more than once a day, including this show. It's a double dose with the Atlanta Falcons season preview. Just continue to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, please. It helps us build this brand. It helps us get it out to more people, so we can, continue producing great content for you guys. I've been David Huppman in Prime Sports World. We bring the heat, baby, and if we continue to bring in you guys good content, including tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down game number 4 and game number 3 and 4 of the NBA Finals. That NBA Finals game kicks off here in just about 2 hours. So let me know down in the comment section who you think is going to win tonight, Boston or Golden State. I think these things are going to be pretty interesting. I have Golden State winning this game, but I could see a scenario where this gets ugly early in Boston. It just trounces because I just look at the athleticism that Boston brings to the table, and it's unmatched by what Golden State can put onto the court. And I haven't liked it all what I've seen out of Draymond Green for the last 3 games. So, but yeah, this has been David Huppman. I've been Prime Sports World. We'll be back here tomorrow when we break down the NBA Finals, and then on Sunday we're going to come back and we're going to break down the New Orleans Saints season preview. The goal is to do a season preview for every single team in the National Football League before football season starts. This is team number 6, so we have 26 more. Let us know what division you think we should do after the NFC South, by the way, because it's a little bit open of where we can go after this. But yeah, David Huppman, you guys all have a good day and stay safe out there. Peace out.